I'm Liz.
I'm Robby. Welcome back to our channel, Bookworm Couple. Today we are going to be talking about the second book in the Empyrean series by Rebecca Yarros, Iron Flame. We just released our Fourth Wing video.
Yeah, it's the first time we've
2 or 3
read
weeks ago.
a book together so fast.
Yes.
And we are also wearing some Iron Flame Fourth Wing designs by my friend Rachel. Her shop is Spark and Edge. Check them out. Robby's wearing Zayden's hoodie. Of course he is. It's the Basgiath War College, and then mine is Violence Sorrengail's shirt. They come in a bunch of different... They're amazing. Check out Spark and Edge if you're a bookish person. She makes amazing designs.
And this hoodie is very comfortable. I've not worn any of the other stuff, but it's very comfortable hoodie.
They're so comfy. I wear them all the time.
Anyway,
onto the book.
So, I guess we can jump right into initial thoughts. What are your initial thoughts on Iron Flame?
This is going to be very controversial, I think.
I don't know.
For the world.
Maybe.
Because I loved it and I really hated it at the same time.
I was extremely disappointed by this book. I thought it was a hot take, but then I saw a lot of people espousing similar opinions on the internet, so it might not be. I think that the book is still entertaining. If you liked the first one, you'll probably like this one, but if you had problems with the first one, they are only exacerbated in this book.
Yes.
Full disclosure, I finished the book a week or two ago. I finished it before Liz. And so the longer I've sat with it, the more the problems bugged me. I think it's, this is still a spoiler-free section of the video, so I'm just going to go with some general thoughts here, and please interrupt me if you have any other thoughts.
Yeah.
But the turnaround time on this book was incredible. It was like 6 or 7 months since Fourth Wing came out. I don't even know how you write a book that quickly, much less get it through the editing and publishing process. But to me, it seems like this book suffered because of it. I think it could have been 1, maybe even 200 pages shorter. I think that there were a ton of repetitive scenes. I think that there was just a bunch of repetitive phrases and lines in the book. I specifically noticed this in like the romance scenes for some reason. I don't know why it stood out to me, but there were certain things that just kept being said and not in a way that I thought the author was kind of like nodding to the reader like this is how it always goes.
Well,
more
it
just
felt very like, to me, it felt like a lot of, and we'll get into the nitty gritty of this before, but I kind of read it as like this author is a great author. I like her a lot. But it felt like a lot of her unprocessed emotions, like around relationships and things. And like you said, that repetitiveness of like certain things over and over again, to me was very much of like, felt like this was your thing that you haven't like really gone with. And maybe this is not something I can really talk about until we get into the spoilers, because it's easier to get more specific. But I do think, like you said, like the first half of the book before part 2 could have been the whole book.
It could have been.
I truly was like, where are we going to go from here? Yeah. Excited to have more book to read because, like I said, I loved it. I wanted to keep reading it. I was consistently immersed in the world. I didn't want to put it down. I love the squad. I love the characters. But I also had such issues with so many plot pieces and so many emotional plot pieces mainly. And so whilst reading it, I really, because of how it's written, I wanted to consistently keep going because there's always a cliffhanger, there's always something coming next. Yeah. But I was very frustrated at the same time. Just an interesting experience as a reader.
Yeah, I think the book has huge pacing issues, which is the thing that really I struggled with the whole time. I really struggled to get through the first quarter of this book for multiple reasons, largely because a plot line that was really being focused on is just something that I didn't enjoy, which is something we'll talk about in a little bit. I think that the pacing issues just really made it hard to get through it. The book did not justify its own length in any means to me. And it was longer than the first, I think, by like over 100 pages, and I think it should have been shorter than the first. I think that there's enough good stuff in there to make like a 350 page book. Anyway, a lot of the issues that I have with it can kind of be brought down to pacing, but again, I do feel, and I have nothing to back this up, and I also don't want to be mean, but I do think that this book, a lot of the problems probably would have been fixed if it was given more time before it was pushed out to the public. That's just an assumption, though. Maybe she had written this before the Fourth Wing even came out, and so it had just as much time in editing and stuff, but I don't know, and it feels like if it's been 7 months since Fourth Wing came out, and this book seems to be lacking in a lot of the ways I thought the first one wasn't, or at least not as badly, then it seems like there's a decent chance that is the reason, but that's how I feel.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is going to be my first truly, I think, negative discussion here. I did not enjoy my time with this book.
Yeah. And I'm someone who I've never really not finished a book unless it was too hard for me to understand. That's those types of books I have. But even when I don't like books, I tend to push through because I want to know what happens.
Yeah.
And most of the time there's something or someone that character-wise that draws me in, that drives me through reading it. And I felt that way with this one, where it was like, it was something that I understand if people had put this one down and stopped reading it, especially if they're used to reading the similar things to, you know, what I read, that romantasy area of stories. But this one was, it was such an interesting read because I had so many problems. I didn't really have any problems with the writing style, but I guess maybe I did. It was more of the emotional things, but it was, and I basically what I'm trying to say is this is probably going to be my first negative-ish review as well.
Okay.
Because, like I said, I have a lot of good things to say about it, but I truly disliked a lot of it.
Sure.
That's hard for me to say, because I'm an easy person to please. I love entertainment in any form, and I can find entertainment in most things, and I was entertained by this book, but I was probably more frustrated than entertained.
Sure. Yeah, I think that's understandable. So, spoiler warning going forward for Iron Flame. I know this book just came out, so there may be more of you watching this who have not read it than usual for the books that, for these videos that we do. So, spoiler warning, we're going to be going into some details here. So, if you have not read the book yet, I highly recommend you go, you check it out, and then you come back and see what we have to say later. So, where do you want to start?
I have so many feelings.
Characters, great.
I love.
Cool.
I love the squad. The squad, I want them to be my friends. I want a Rhiannon, a Sawyer, and a Riddick in my life so bad. They're incredible.
Yeah, they're great.
I love Mira. I love Brennan. I think they're really interesting, different sides of like a sibling dynamic with Violet thrown in there as well. Love Xaden. Really love Xaden. I really loved him this time too. I loved him first time. I loved him this time as well. I really like Violet. I want to like her more. I was very, very frustrated with the emotional journey that the author chose to give her with her relationship with Xaden. I thought it was very immature. I thought it, like I said earlier, felt very unprocessed. Starting with, I guess, I don't know, do you want to talk about characters before I dive in?
Yeah, sure. I also like the squad. I think they were great. I think part of the reason that I liked them so much is that they spent so much time telling Violet she was being dumb about her trust issues with Xaden. I really struggled to like Violet in this book. I understand that it's a general, that it's a common storyline that young heroes or heroines go through, especially in YA type novels, even though this technically isn't one. But again, this gives me very strong YA vibes. Again, which also still not a knock, but in this case, I don't like the plot lines where the reason that the author gives, especially in romance books, for the main couple not to be together, because there needs to be a reason to keep them apart, otherwise a lot of the tension of the series falls apart, is that one kept a secret from the other that the other person had no business knowing, and in this case would endanger many other people's lives.
That entire idea was recycled over and over and over and over again throughout the book. I understand. A lot of times I read fantasy books and romance books to heal, to live out certain fantasies, and also to like kind of heal through things. Like seeing someone write depression on a page has been the most like eye-opening thing for me in my own experience, for example. And so I'm looking for, I don't know, like a deep understanding throughout these kinds of things, and this felt very much like we had reverted back in time and we're going back to like what teenagers thought relationships needed to be and what teenagers thought honesty was, because that was my biggest frustration with the secret keeping thing. I understand the desire to want nothing but all open honesty. That was something that I struggled with in my own life and past relationships, but there is a difference between honesty and I don't even know how to voice what that Violet's idea was.
Demanding that you own every part of someone else.
Every single part. And it was just too much to me. And granted, Xaden played a little game as well. His whole "you have to ask me for it" was stupid.
I literally wrote in my notes, I agree with Xaden, but he also doesn't have to be such a dick about it.
Yes, exactly. Like, I agree with him of like, if you want to ask, I'll tell you. But if they're... And I do understand if there are things that are going to affect you, your relationship, or the person directly, and you're not telling them about that, great. If you want to get to know someone's past, 100%. I understand that desire. But to harp on, I need, basically, what she was asking for is, I need full access to every feeling you've ever had, and every thing you've ever done, which just felt immature. It just felt like what you think relationships are when you're 14.
I mean, to be fair, that is a legitimate thing that people think in their earlier relationships, but it's not a fun thing to read for hundreds of pages, especially when
you think you're over it.
The reason that the Squad, I liked the Squad so much, or at least part of the reason, I do like all those characters, but part of the reason is because Yaros at least seemed to be able to be introspective enough to have them all say, you're in the wrong here, Violet. However, she still wrote out every scene where she had to explain it to them over and over again and have her and them process what's happening. And so it just became so repetitive. And like the first quarter of the book is so heavily on that I really struggled to get through it. But then by the end of the book, I almost didn't even care anymore because we kept seeing the same argument between her and Xaden and her and the other people
I thought it was very
again.
interesting too when they brought in, at the end of the book, Xaden's secret other.
Yes, sure.
What are they called? Signets.
Xaden's other signet.
For Violet's reaction to that, I was like, oh, cool. Like, to me, I was reading, I was like, oh, cool, because that's what she's been expecting him to give her. Is the fact that he can read emotions, which also, like, he was like, I can read your intentions. I was like, dope. That sounds great. I feel like you can probably do that just by looking at me because you know me well.
Sure.
Like, it did not seem at all to me something to feel so intensely about, especially when basically that's what she was asking Xaden to let her do for him.
The other thing that really bothered me about Violet that made it hard for me to like her in this book was she like demanded absolute honesty and trust, but couldn't keep a secret to save her life. Like every scene until she finally did start spilling secrets, which was still pretty early on, but before that, almost every scene she like almost let it slip, and I was like, and this is why no one should be telling you anything.
Which again I think is why I feel like it was this, and maybe this was Rebecca Yarros trying to be like giving her time to process through that, because maybe that was her at one point trying to understand Xaden, you know, of her trying to explain of like, Violet needs to go through this long enough to then understand his point of view, but it felt exhausting.
It did. And let's let that lie for a second. I'll talk about two characters whose journey I did enjoy the whole time. Taryn and Andarna.
Oh yes,
great.
Sassy teenage Andarna.
Sassy teenage Andarna. I will say I think it's a missed opportunity that it didn't make her like goth or emo, because she's like this teenage dragon who's now black, and I was just like, okay, well, I mean, put some eyeshadow on her and give her some bangs.
Yeah, she had some great one-liners.
Really did,
Oh my gosh,
I liked her.
So teenage.
Taryn is great. I did enjoy in that scene that you were just talking about where Xaden finally reveals he has the second signet, and it's revealed that his dragon, Segale, I know I'm pronouncing everything wrong. That's fine.
Sorry, correct us.
Revealed she didn't share that with Taryn. Yeah. I thought that was an interesting and well-deserved moment. And
it also, to me, really validated the Dragon Rider relationship. And I think also gave me a respect for that, for like Xaden with that. Because even though, he wasn't keeping a secret, but him and his dragon's bond was so strong that I was like, wow.
You know what else bothered me? Is that like she was mad at Xaden the whole time, and I kind of expected it, which was a bummer. But she like was mad at Brennan for not telling her that he was alive, but then also never really did anything about it.
No, very quickly.
I was just like, okay, so like, and actually that leads me to another thing that was kind of performative, is I'm very disappointed about how her physical ailment was dealt with in this book. It felt entirely performative to me. It only showed up when it was convenient. It seems like at any time when it could have actually been a detriment to her, it just like magically she seems to have gotten over it, and they just mention that she braces everything.
And also like, work out really hard and it's fine.
Yes, my thing was like, if you weren't gonna use it, why didn't you just have her magically healed from it when she bonded with Taryn? It's dragon magic. Who cares?
Well, and if you're not going to be consistent with it, I think that's the biggest thing. And it's I don't know if you read the acknowledgments at the end or where I think Rebecca Yarros and or her children have some sort of joint
Oh, I must have missed that.
Yeah,
part.
she was talking about like living with some sort of
Fascinating.
I don't know if you would call it a disability. Sorry, there's the word. Living with a disability, like her and a couple of her children
Interesting.
have. And it was something like it was like muscles. And it was essentially, when I read that, I was like, oh, okay, so Violet is sort of your situation,
Sure.
which I think
Cool.
at that point, I agree with you. Like, I would have enjoyed more consistency
Yeah.
with, and like, as much as I want my heroine to be really, really strong and to be able to, like what I admired about Violet so much in this book and the first book and the second was how much she can handle herself and how much people are almost afraid of this like little person. Which, as a little person, I've always wanted to feel powerful, and I
Sure.
want my heroine to feel powerful. But also, there is power in living with your body and how it works. And I don't need you to be 1, 2, 3 ripped, like, to see how you deal with it consistently over and over again, maybe to a point of more realism. And I don't know if that's right, but I think I craved that, and I think you're right.
It was such a big deal was made of it. I think if it had just been performative from the very beginning, then maybe I wouldn't have noticed it as much, but it was such a big plot point in the first book, and now in the second one, it really feels like it just wasn't, because it wasn't convenient for the plot.
Yeah.
And that bothered me.
Yeah.
If you're gonna use it, if you're gonna put it in, I think you gotta use it personally.
Yeah.
How did you feel about Dane?
I expected that.
I did too, which was such
really
a bummer.
expected it.
Like, when that scene happened, I went, he's gonna free her. And I was like, I hate that I know it, because that should have been a cool twist.
It could have been, yeah, but I also, like, it was something that I would have taken away some pages of the Xaden is not telling me everything for some more Dane.
Yeah.
Let's dig into, I've known you my whole life, our relationship. He's just, which I could see that from the last book. Yes, he frustrated me beyond belief and was so annoying, but you could see that he's just the boy that follows the rules. He's just the boy that does everything right. That's what he does. He's not an evil guy. At least I read that from the first book. Did he frustrate me? Yes. Was he an idiot? Absolutely. But you could see the way he was in this book. I think I just would have liked a little bit more leading up to it.
Yeah, me too.
More with the two of them.
Me too. Yeah, that would have been nice.
As a grown adult woman, what I don't want to see, because what happens in the media shapes us as people when we're younger and even into now. So I talk a lot about like how, the Twilight era of media showed us that the idea of a loving partner is someone who's incredibly jealous and really protective in a really bad way. And that was what I know a lot of me, and that's why we're all reading these fantasy books now, the millennials, the other millennial women and I, kind of healing through all of that, and we have our little kinks and things with these sexy scenes because of kind of what we were taught in the media to expect from a relationship, to want from a relationship, to desire from a relationship. Another trope that I thought we were over was pitting females against each other for a man.
I was wondering where you were
literally,
going with
I have full body chills because it infuriated me because it was so unnecessary. It was absolutely unnecessary.
Yeah.
It was, I hate to say disgusting, but it made me feel disgusted how far in we went to female jealousy and females pitting against each other for a man or for someone that they're attracted to. It was just something, and that was another thing that I felt like was a very unprocessed thing from the author, that maybe that is something that we deal with, or I would hope that we have dealt with it, but I think to move from that, we need to stop putting it into media, because we really don't need it. Like, it doesn't need to be there. Gosh, I can't even have words because it be flames on the side of my face.
Yeah,
it makes me so angry.
To be very clear, you're talking about Kat.
Kat, yes. Right? The whole backstory with Kat, fine. Have an ex-girlfriend. Of course you have an ex-girlfriend. That's super great. But the way that it was dealt with, and her behavior, and then Violet's behavior with it made me so mad. Because it was just, I feel like, harmful. I couldn't, it was so hard for me to read it.
Interesting.
Oh.
I kind of just took it, unfortunately, in stride. I was just like, okay, here comes this part. Sure. Got it. I will say, though, anytime I haven't read a lot of romance books, okay?
Okay.
But anytime that a new character was introduced that, like, was hot, which is most of them, I would write in my notes, threesome? But, or this is my new theory, she and Dane are going to bone so hard
Who, Kat and Dane?
Yeah, just because I think, I'm like, yeah, sure.
I'm super into that.
Let's do that.
Side quest, I want Mira and Kat's sister to get together. They had some, like,
absolutely.
interactions where I was like, oh, is this a thing? Is this a thing? Because they were, like, catty at each other, but then also, like, we're kind of the same. We're both kind of hot.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm
hardcore women. I was into that.
Definitely into that. Mira was great. Mira's great.
Mira is a realistic thinker. She's very smart.
And you know who I actually kind of enjoyed this book because we actually got something from them was her mom, General Sorrengill.
Yeah.
I thought that there were a few explanations of motives in this book that kind of beggared belief, but I was still appreciative to get them.
Well,
like her assuming that the scribes were going to kill Violet and saying
because
that she knew
smart.
that because she's too smart. I was like, okay, that's a bit much of a stretch, but not as much of a stretch as Andarna saying, I always knew it was you. And I was like, okay, that's a lot. But at the same time, her explaining, like, the reason Xaden was so close to her and didn't kill her in the beginning wasn't because he fell for her at first sight at the parapet, which is what he said in the first book. And I went, that is crap.
Yeah.
And it's because he made a deal with her mom.
I
was like,
also...
that makes so much more sense. It is much more satisfying for me as a reader.
I was shocked that Violet had no issue with that. She just shocked.
Picked and chose.
That was the thing. I was like, okay, if Violet picked and chose,
she picked and chose who she wanted to be.
I thought if Violet was that insistent on honesty, that would have. I was like, I was ready for everything to be thrown to hell, and it wasn't, which confused me because I was like, okay, this is the character that we've created. Why would she not freak out about this situation? But maybe it was because it was written so fast that we're like, we can't deal with this. We gotta finish.
You know what? Actually, I thought like is a pretty good just like example of what the problems with this book is. Like the entire book is about trust, but the last plot points we're kind of going all over the place here. But the very end with the ward stones and her trying to like she knows the secret of how to fix the ward stones and stuff, and the whole book is about her being like, no one shares everything with me, and I want to be open and honest with everyone, but no one is being open and honest with me. And she doesn't share the secret of the wardstones with anyone, even in the very last moments, until the very end. And if she had, no one would have had to die. That also follows the bit where she's like, I'm gonna sacrifice myself. Taryn, please decide not to die, which breaks the world's internal logic. And like the biggest plot point in the book, where it's not a choice, and if they die, all of them die.
Yeah.
That might have been my biggest issue with the book. I was like, this is the end climactic scene, and the entire sequence fell flat for me because I was like, this doesn't make sense. Like,
well, she didn't know.
Dumb.
She didn't know the type of dragon Andarna was until the last minute.
I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about like.
But that's how she had to get the wardstone.
Yes, but she knew everything, and she could tell. She could have told her mom. She could have told anyone, and there could have been more riders with her.
But she didn't know that they needed a seventh dragon breed.
But she knew that they needed to imbue the stone with power.
Correct. And the stone was imbued, but it was broken.
Yes. But once it was fixed, she knew that it needed to be imbued. She knew that.
Right.
And she didn't tell people, and so that meant that there was only one person there when they could have just kept a few extra people, and no one would have had to die to do it.
I don't know.
It bothered the crap out of me, if you can't tell. It really, really bothered me. So, another plotline that really bothered me, a character that really bothered me was Varish. And obviously you're not supposed to like him. And that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the fact that his entire character and his entire plotline, like, broke the logic of their own world. In the first book, they call the school a murder factory, and it's kind of funny. And, you know, you kind of just go along with it, even though all these people die. But, like, his very first scene where his dragon kills a bunch of bonded riders makes no sense. I'm not going to pretend that I understand the intricacies of the military-industrial complex in the world, especially in this country, which I know that a lot of this is based off of, because I believe Yoris' husband is in the military. If they're on a wartime footing, and their most precious resource is bonded dragon riders, and he can just kill them at will, that doesn't without any sort of repercussions. It's not like he was court-martialed or anything. Yeah. And he also almost killed Violet multiple times. I think he killed other people. I'm not kind of forgetting right now, but his entire character, I understand that he was there because he needed to be a villain and like instigate certain incidents, but nothing he did made sense to me, especially when his dragon had been scarred and disfigured by Taryn before.
Yeah.
And yet he still threatened Taryn's rider and potentially and almost killed her in front of Taryn when he knew that Taryn could either blind or kill his dragon. It doesn't make sense.
No, I think that was the point. It's just there's an angry, mean person and an angry, mean dragon. I don't think it was meant to make sense.
I don't think that, and I understand that you could be an angry, mean person, but someone who had gotten that far, I would think, you can be angry, you can be mean, but you can't be that stupid. It's less, to me, that whole thing. I understand he was being mean and he was being cruel and that was his whole thing, and he, like, but the idea that he truly thought, like, I'm going to be able to take control of this dragon because I'm going to take control of the dragon's rider, which flies in the face of that one of their favorite quotes in this entire series, which is, dragons can't be ordered by humans. I butchered that, but you understand what I say.
Humans are what I'm going to say.
You can be cruel, you can be mean, you can be a great villain. You can't be that stupid. Like, I didn't buy a second of any of Varish's stuff. Him having to send his dragon into hiding to torture her, I was like, no one with any self-preservation instinct would do that at all. Like, the only thing you're hanging your hopes on not being killed on is the vague precedent that dragons don't usually kill each other. It bothered the crap out of me. The entire thing didn't make sense, and even without that second part, which, you're right, is totally arguable that he's just trying to be mean and cruel and whatever, there is nothing that can really convince me that it makes sense that he would be in command and would be able to, essentially with his own hand, murder cadets or bonded riders without any repercussions, which is exactly what happened, and that there's no way that makes sense to me at all.
Because there's also a repercussion for the dragons. Which
yes, exactly. It doesn't make that. So I don't. It's just the entire. I wish that I know that was like the entire first half of the book, and I kind of wish it just had that character just hadn't existed.
Yeah. I also thought Jack Barlow was unnecessary.
Yeah, me too. By the
Jack
time
Barlow coming back to life, it meant nothing to me.
By the time Jack came back. But I literally wrote in my notes, of course Jack Barlow's not dead. I don't care anymore, though.
It felt very predictable.
Because I knew he wasn't dead. If you don't see a body, they're not dead.
Yeah, you never know. But I was also like, I just didn't need it. I didn't need his connection to the Venom. I do have a theory.
Great.
Because now we know, this is the very last page, everyone, so hope you finish the whole book. Xaden has used the earth magic, so he now has, like, the Venom, the signs of being a Venom. I think that it's going to be a process of, because he talks about, like, how much power came from the earth, like, how it felt, and, like, how good and enticing it was. To me, I've always liked earth magic. Like, earth magic is good. Like, it's a good thing. It feels like a very good thing to, to pull from the earth. I mean, look at the Wheel of Time. It's all, there's so many references to that in so many different books and worldviews and things that I just feel like the idea of the next book is for them to figure out how to work with the earth magic in a good way. Because it's like Xaden is not going to die.
Well, to me, I thought that the way that the earth magic worked in this entire series was it instead of like using the earth's power, it's stealing power from the earth and leaving everything around it barren.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like I'm theorizing, the Barons. I'm theorizing that they're going to find a way to work with earth magic. That is not that. Let's talk about the spice.
Okay, let's talk about the spice.
Wasn't that spicy? Except for one scene.
Are you talking about the throne room scene?
Oh, yes.
Sure.
That was amazing.
I expected more.
No, I did too.
I expected more, to be honest. I also thought, as I said in the beginning of the video, I do think that this is where a lot of the repetitive phrases really became very apparent, and not in like a good, like, oh, this is the way it always happens way, and like, did no one take the time to tell you that she's melted into Xaden like 7 times in this book? Or that she's broken into 1,000 pieces or shattered or been absolutely destroyed by Xaden a bunch of... I say, she comes super easy. Which, great. That's awesome. Good for her. But,
it is something interesting that I've told you about, that I read a lot of romance, that I feel like when you read the same author over and over again, they have a formula. Like Nora Roberts, happens the same every single time. A woman orgasms the same way every single time. I will say Sarah J. Maas, she mixes it up a little bit. But
That's
you
what I
can
wanted.
tell that she is also like, this is what helps me. I'm a real woman. This is what helps me in the bedroom.
It's an instruction manual for me.
It's a honestly
No,
the
for sure,
Avatar books
yeah.
100% are.
I
This was again, you're reading this person's. It's either their rhythm, for lack of a better word, or what they think would be good.
I appreciated the fact that there were different actions done. I don't know how much we can say on YouTube, but I appreciate.
Fellatio?
Yes,
You can
yeah,
say
I was actually
fellatio.
surprised about that part. I was like, wow, I'm surprised a woman wrote fellatio into her sex fantasy
Yeah,
book.
because it's sexy too.
But I
Sexy
appreciated that there were different settings and different types of actions done, but I thought that the phrasing that she used was so similar every single time. I noticed that length was used a few more times, which I loved. I didn't notice a ton of other euphemisms, though, other than the very pedestrian cock, which was thrown around a lot.
You gotta get, you'll get in. You'll get into it.
But anyway,
get some good ones.
you know, so I don't know what exactly I expected. I can't say because I haven't read a ton of these books, but I did expect something a little bit more, and I did expect something a little less repetitive. It's not to say that they didn't do exactly what they were supposed to do.
And it's obvious that a lot of the emotional between them, whatever the word I'm trying to...
Emotional distress?
Emotional distress, thank you. It's obvious emotional distress between them was to bring you back to...
Yeah, it's called tension and release.
That tension, yeah, but it didn't do it for me. It made me frustrated. And I just felt like Xaden was just like falling on his hands and knees over and over again to try and give her what she wanted. I loved the throne room scene. Didn't love why it happened, but I loved the throne room scene.
Yeah,
I thought it was
good.
I
thought that was the best one of the book.
It was
for sure.
absolutely. It was very
For
sexy.
sure.
It was very very different. Like you said, kind of in a different, completely
I think
different
that's
space.
kind of what I was looking for more for all of them, and you know. We got one of those, which I did think was very good. But again, I still think that even that one, she's like shatters into a million pieces in that one, and I was like, that's like the same thing you said about
unless you
the
describe
last
an
one.
orgasm.
I don't know. I'm not an author, but
I was gonna say
I'm
you're
also
gonna hear
not
that
a
lot,
woman,
I will
and
say.
so I don't know what it feels like, and maybe that's the only thing it feels
Melting.
like, and then I'm just wrong. But I do feel like you could describe it in other different ways.
I'm gonna have you write out your descriptions and give them to me.
Okay, cool.
I love that.
But
I think we can wrap it up.
Sure, let's wrap it. Okay, so what are we gonna rate this out of? If you have no ideas, that's okay. I can throw it.
No. What are the things? I was gonna say that I want to say obelisk, but that's not what it is.
Wardstones.
Wardstones.
That was actually my thought as well.
Okay, cool.
Right,
Wardstones.
Wardstones. Who knows what that's gonna be in that I use in
Probably
what image I'm gonna use
really
in
good.
post, but you will all find out very soon. So, how many out of 5 Wardstones would you give this book?
3.5.
Okay.
I wanted, there was, like I had said before, I had a hard time reading this because I had so many issues with it, so many personal issues with it, but I couldn't put it down.
Sure.
So I was like that half.
Sure.
Because I think emotionally I would have rated it a 2.
Got it.
But I think there was, like I said, lots of things I liked about it. So 3.5 Wardstones for me.
Okay. I'm gonna give it a 2. I really struggled with this. I think if we had shot this video right after I finished, I might have given it a 2.5. But my opinion has only gone down in the time I've had to think about it since I finished reading it. So yeah, a 2. I just think that for a series that got so popular so fast, I understand wanting to, you know, hang on to that popularity. I feel like this was a huge step backwards, unfortunately. And I hope that, honestly, I hope that I am, you know, in the minority feeling this. I hope people still love this book. I hope that, you know, the rest of the series continues to be extremely popular, and I really hope that they take more time with the third book, because I think most of my problems with this book could be solved with just another few maybe rounds of edits.
Yeah, for sure.
So I'm you know, obviously whenever the third one comes out, gonna read it, but I hope it doesn't come out for over a year.
Yeah, give it a minute.
Like a year
simmer.
or more. Like to take the time to fix the issues with the prose in this one and stuff, and then hopefully we can get something that's just a little bit tighter for the
a little bit
for
more
the
mature
third.
too.
Yeah, I hope so.
Anyways,
so those are our thoughts.
We would love to continue this discussion, so leave us comments how you felt. If you feel differently, cool. We love it. Love what you love. That's awesome. If you hated certain things or different things that we hated, let us know. We want to connect over it. We want to give honest reviews and our honest opinions, and not everything is for everyone all the time. But sometimes it is. So if it's for you, awesome.
Great.
Let's talk about it.
Please, yeah. We hope it's. I hope
Fight for it. We'd love to have the discussion.
I hope everyone watching this video who read the book liked it more than I did, sincerely.
Yeah.
But just wasn't for me,
Yeah,
and that's
that's
okay.
okay.
Like and subscribe to see more of our videos, and
yeah, thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you on our next adventure.